The juice is loose, and Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is bringing back Lydia Deetz's iconic red wedding dress, but with a fun new twist, so let's make it. Hey guys, my name is Mackenzie and welcome back to my YouTube channel where I take you on the behind the scenes of my latest cosplay making project, and today's video is going to cover Lydia Deetz's new iconic red wedding dress from Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, and I'm just absolutely so excited to get into making this project because the original has been on my cosplans list forever, and with the new movie coming out, it's a perfect excuse for me to make another Lydia Deetz cosplay because last year I did make the Broadway musical version. So let's get into it and start with a supplies haul slash a plan. As much of a plan as I've been able to put together at this point. The supplies for this one were kind of hard to track down, especially before the movie comes out, but let's go through what I have. Okay, we don't often sit on the clean floor to go through supplies, but it's clean for once, so let's take advantage. When I'm making this, the movie hasn't come out yet, so I don't have a lot of reference pictures to go off of. This is the collection of the best things I found, and somehow I found that picture of the actual costume on display randomly on some Texas radio station website, so that was after a lot of effort of reverse Google image searching at 1 a.m. in the trenches, but it was worth it because now we kind of have a better idea of what we're going for. And major shout out to my friend Karma, who actually got to visit the Warner Brothers studio in Hollywood and took these extra crispy pictures for reference. I can't thank you enough. This helped me so much. And I was at a crossroads because I have two different colors of pleated tulle fabric. The problem is that this one's left over from my Harley Quinn cosplay, and this is all I have, which is obviously not enough to make the dress. So I went on to Etsy, looked for my pleated accordion tulle fabric, and ordered red. This is wine. It's very much wine in my eyeballs. I need a hot red like this because her dress is actually the same color as her dress in the original movie, which is a bright hot red. So more of this is on the way. Fingers crossed it gets here soon. I'm going to ruffle it and then do 10 layers of that up the skirt. Under that, I will be putting a lace trim. Here's the lace trim. I have all these red fabrics that are slightly different hues that I'm going to use for different parts of the dress. I was taking a closer look at the top and I recognized that fabric pattern because it's randomly the same as this one shirt I have from Free People, which is like a lace undershirt that I happen to know Amazon has a lot of dupes of, and they happen to make it in hot red. Sometimes you have to get resourceful because I couldn't figure out where the heck to get this fabric not already in a shirt. And the last thing is the satin blanket trim, which I'm going to be using for the little V ribbon area that she has where the bodice and skirt attached. And let's fast forward a few business days for the rest of the haul. The rest of the fabric came in and I am so nervous to make sure it's the right color, so fingers crossed, let's open it together. Yes, this is hot red, right? Hot red. It's all gonna be okay because this is exactly what we needed. And then I got this fabric for the bodice. It's my striped organza. Also hot red. The stripes are a little bit closer together than I want them to be, but beggars can't be choosers. This is what I was able to find and it looks good. It looks good enough. So let's get started cutting and turn all of this into a bunch of 6-inch ruffle strips. And I got 5 yards, so I think, no, did I get 10 yards? We have a lot to work with. Let's turn this into something. I'm sort of going insane right now because I can't figure out if her skirt is a half circle skirt or a quarter circle skirt, and I am leaning towards thinking it's more of a quarter circle, and I actually can't do the quarter circle skirt in one continuous piece. I have to do it in 2 separate pieces, which requires me to do math, and I'm not 100% sure on how I'm going to accomplish that with like the math of angles. Sewing is literally so much geometry, so I'm gonna ruminate on this and we'll see what I decide. At this point in the project, I decided to go with a half circle skirt, which I will end up changing my mind about later, but that's not where we're at right now. We knew that I was suspicious that the half circle skirt was going to be too flouncy, and just like look how much extra fabric there is. So we'll deal with the figuring out the math to fix this later, but I just went ahead with figuring out what the right length was, and I did a rolled edge hem on my serger just because that's a very easy way for me to finish the hem, and the bottom is going to be covered by the end of a ruffle anyways. And speaking of ruffles, it was time to cut all of them out, and it took me about like 8 to 10 minutes to do each of these because I'm using this little quilting ruler to make sure that each
ruffle is very straight because hers are very straight, not jagged. And then we have to gather them on my sewing machine, and it was a long process.
It's not almost empty.
Because my bobbin kept running out of thread and like saying it was empty, but it wasn't empty, we need to figure out how to make bigger bobbins.
You have so much thread left. Little update from the gathering station here. This gather is just absolutely, completely underwhelming. It's barely gathered. Basically, all it's doing is folding the fabric on the existing folds, which luckily works out for this project because this is what the pleats on hers look like, and it's not really ruffled, but it's just like painfully slow because I have to babysit it the whole time. So we're just like, adjust. And then it keeps getting stuck, and it's just like, and this is me the whole time if you even care. Like, it's stuck. Come on. Okay, update. I finished ruffling the tulle fabric, and now I'm moving on to the red trim because I did a little overlay with this flat and the top ruffled, and I just think that's not gonna work on a curved skirt, so I'm doing the slightest ruffle, and it's just breezing through the machine, so at least we have this going for us. I have laid out all the pieces of ruffled fabric that I have, and we're missing some here, and I still need some to use on the top of the bodice. I'm going back to the drawing board and doing some crazed scribblings of geometry to try to figure out how to turn this half circle skirt into a third circle skirt. I think if I figure out where to fold it, which should be this number of inches, it's gonna work. And I can cut off all this extra area and pick up that space for ruffles. The math was mathing today. I think it's gonna work if I take the waistband down about 4 inches, and look at this. It couldn't be any closer. Like, it's still gonna be the right length. I have unlocked removing all of this.
Okay, first of all, location change. We're now at my parents' house because I was watching my sweet doggy over this trip. As you can see, he'll be featured soon. But anyways, I cut that into a third circle skirt. It worked. I had to add a little bit to the end, but now we're at a point where we can start adding the ruffles on. And it doesn't even matter that I added that little bit because it's covered by the ruffle anyways. And look at my sewing buddy. Oh my God. This process is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a rinse and repeat. You lay down the ruffle, you sew it down, and you move on to the next one. And there are 10 total layers on this dress, so I just kept moving along. Hey Ben, you're extreme cute. If you don't mind, I'll just make this, put this here. And you, okay, that's perfect. That's perfect, thank you. Now, does it look good? You like it? Looks good, right? And as for spacing for this, I'm basically adding about a 1-inch buffer in between each layer. So there's about a 1-inch area where both of the fabrics are gathered, the lace and the ruffle fabric. And then I sew it down along that same line and then cover that up with about 1 inch of fabric from the top. So you can see that there's no like visible top area showing.
Just gonna see if I can borrow this from you. Just see if I can. Let's take this, sir. Thank you.
And it was a very long, monotonous process, but I think it came out really good. And once I had this skirt done, I was ready to go ahead and add a waistband. So I just added some additional red fabric to the top and put in a little like belt to give it some sturdiness. And now that the skirt is finished, we can move on to the bodice. So basically I'm making a little mock-up with some of my final fabrics before I actually decide what I'm gonna do.
Now that I have this basically constructed with my duck fabric and my top fabric, it's definitely way too big. Let's put it on the mannequin and try to fit it. Everything needs to go in by a lot. Now let's sew it and assess the situation. I just was thinking about the logistics of this and I had an epiphany. I think I'm going to make the bodice and the skirt 2 separate pieces so that I can do a really crispy finish and I don't have to worry about sewing on the ruffles to the bodice and it getting all wonky. And so I gotta catch my mouth up with my brain because we're going a million miles a minute. I'm going to deconstruct this and cut another version of this red and a version of the stripe for all of these sizes. Then I am going to, annoying because I have to remake this thing basically, because I need to put in boning channels that are only visible from the inside. Plan is, deconstruct this, cut out more red fabric pieces, cut out striped fabric pieces, re-sew one red and one canvas version, basically remake this. Sew the stripe and the red together. Put in the boning channels on this boy, sew together the stripe and red on the opposite side so my seams are enclosed, and then insert zipper and finish bottom with my blanket trim and then do all the top stuff. Okay, we got it, team. It's like squirrels are in charge up here, but we're figuring it out.
All right, time to do that plan, but let's try to be a little bit more organized. So I started by deconstructing what I had already made, cutting out an extra red, and now I'm cutting out an extra stripe pattern because I'm gonna need to overlay that. Once I have that done, I reconstruct my duck fabric and red pieces, bodice, and put in my boning channels so I can have some structural integrity. And then I decided that the stripe fabric was too boring, so I'm adding on a lace trim to give it that thicker stripe that hers has, and it came out pretty cute, I think. So once I do that to all of the stripe fabric, I can then iron them out and overlay them onto the corresponding red pieces and put that together. Then, since my outer piece is ready, I'm ready to sew that to my inner piece. I turn it inside out and very carefully add on my blanket trim and finish that by hand sewing, which I did not film. I decided to go with the traditional lace-up corset closure instead of a zipper in the back, so I'm using all of my possible Hulk strength to punch holes for these grommets because there are so many pieces of fabric in the way.
Okay, here's where we're at. If you are recognizing me from the intro of this video, I did just film it. Let's pretend that was on time sequence. But anyways, this was the shirt that I was talking about. That's the fabric, it's just turned the other orientation. This bodice, she fought me every step of the way, and it took a lot of hopes and dreams to get this done, and honestly it looks pretty crispy and clean. I just need to do a little bit of like here and there finishing touches, but I almost quit. I almost stopped the project because sometimes things just go your way and sometimes you're deep in the trenches, and my friend Alexandria said that to me and she is spot on. It just like is so many things going on to the same thing, and it has to be fitted and snatched, and I just didn't want to deal with a heavy skirt attaching to this. So we're gonna make it 2 pieces, and who even knows if that's wrong. And here is the sleeve pattern that I've cut out, and it is gigantic. That's just like absolutely too big. So it turns out that this actually turns into this, so I was wrong. That's the idea, and we'll cut it out of here if I even have enough fabric because I'm worried and suspicious. It's like it was meant to be. It's almost exact.
Okay, and rapid fire montage for the rest of the project because it sort of just went smoothly from here, even though it's sleeves, and sleeves are usually my nemesis. So I cut all the pieces out of the fabric using a bolero pattern that I already had to get a rough sleeve shape, and then I just have to do a little Frankensteining and add all the different layers of this sleeve based on how hers looks. So I've got my gathered portion of the sleeve at the top, then the striped portion of the sleeve that's tight at the bottom, and then I'm adding on my little ruffle, which I will need to trim after. And honestly, the end of the sleeve has one of my favorite little embellishments. I found this lace with sequins on it, and I'm just cutting out the edge that I think will fit the end of her sleeve well, pinning that on and carefully sewing it down. And for the top of the bodice, I'm just pinning the top of the bolero pattern that I used and cutting out a little slit in the back because it has to lace up, so I need to be able to get inside. The bodice edge also gets a little ruffle trim, which needs to be cut down to size because the ruffles on the skirt are longer than the ruffles on the sleeves and on the front of the bodice and sleeves. I said that twice. I added some of the ruffle tulle fabric to the neckline, and I'm going ahead and adding that same lace trim from the edge of the sleeves. Then it was time to actually sew the sleeves on, and it turns out that I just basically filmed a blurry video of my armpit instead of me clearly sewing, so sorry about that, but it's, you know, me versus sleeves. Something always goes wrong. And for my final trick, I do the aforementioned trimming of the ruffle tulle, and we are ready for the reveal.
flew by and she's finally finished, and I think she came out actually perfect. Making this project was sort of a last minute decision for me. It was kind of like loosely on my cosplans list throughout the year, but once I saw more pictures of the dress, I was just in love with it. I didn't expect it to turn out this good because I basically just frantically purchased fabric 2-ish weeks ago, and here we are. She's a little bit itchy and sweaty to wear. I mean, these are like all synthetic fabrics, so that's not a shock, but she's beautiful. And sometimes I feel like things look better on the mannequin than they do on me, and this is definitely a mannequin dress, not as much an on me dress, because I just, for some reason, I feel like it's not flattering. And I feel like maybe that's because it's just like so much that once you put it on a person, it like overwhelms the person, and that's why it's better on the mannequin, because there's not like a head to distract from all of it. Throughout the process of making it, it was giving me such flashbacks to making this Harley Quinn dress, because the skirt is basically 90% the same, it's just not as ruffled, and instead of having sequin fabric under it, it has a lace fabric under it. Since I made this 2 pieces, I could probably use the skirt for both costumes and extend my other dress to be like ball gown length. So that's a little save it for later. And another reason I'm so happy I decided to make this cosplay was because I got to wear it to an early screening event in New York City, and it was just so fun. I'll include some clips of that at the end. But seeing the video of me in my dress next to the giant version of Lydia on the poster was just like chef's kiss. It was a very fun like costume geek moment for me, because I was like, wow, I really did get it pretty close. I love her. And that's all. But the movie was so good, and I highly recommend that you go see it, and you can trust me because sometimes I make cosplays for movies that end up being terrible. But this was good. This is certified good in my book. But thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to come back for more cosplay content, because we're entering spooky season, which means it's like prime time for my channel, since everything on there can be used as a Halloween costume. And I have some very, very exciting plans coming up for the rest of the fall season. I have way more costumes than I have time to make, but I will be staying up late and waking up early and spending my weekends working on them, because conveniently I have to wear all of them to events that happen in the next like 6 weeks. So crossing my fingers for good luck to get those finished, and stay tuned. And just for fun, I've included a couple extra clips of me in New York wearing this costume at the early screening, which was so much fun. Okay, thanks guys, bye.